Okay, all you dirt bike delinquents, this is it. Welcome to the first ever Torq Moto show with Jeffro and Wobbs.
Yeah.
Wobbs,
Here we are.
Here we are. We're doing it. Just to give you a little insight, this is something that we've been speaking about for a fair amount of time. Always kind of putting it off, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got something better to do, but now we thought, you know what? We think the UK needs a podcast, a decent chat show, almost like a, don't know, just so we can talk to a few people, get some lowdown on what's going on. Because where do you get your news from nowadays? Where do you get your information from? You know, you look at the right Facebook pages, but if we can cover it all on a bi-weekly show to start off with, then happy days.
The key thing for us, though, it's stories. We like the stories, the bench racing, because let's be honest, Wobbs, we've lived for a few of them ourselves, which is why we're doing, another reason why we're doing this. Off the back of this, just to give a little insight of where we're from, for those of you that are old enough, you'll know, a younger generation, see this? Now this, let's see, when the first issue, you was the editor of the first issue of Moto back in January 2004. I joined about a year later.
Yeah.
And then we worked together on it. You as editor, I then followed.
Yeah.
You was then US correspondent and did all that. And off the back of Moto, that's when we've always said, you know, that was like being in a rock band. And it was.
It was funny, yeah. It was quality, yeah. I mean, we got away with murder, really.
Yeah, putting the magazine together, you know, like with Tim and Blissy and Matt Allard, Tom Fuller, everybody involved, Justin Day. And when it just sort of disbanded, or the team disbanded, we always said it would be cool to get that back one day. And now here it is in digital form.
Exactly, because print media's fucked. I mean, like when we were doing it, you know, we lost Loaded, Lads Mag, and FHM, all them. If they can't survive, you got
funny that you relate to them, isn't it?
You got no hope, have you? So, you know, at the end of the day, it's all digital media now. So if we can revisit that with the same kind of format, speak to the right people who are comfortable with us because we know them for decades. They're not trying to throw anybody under the bus. We're trying to just get to it and have a bit of a laugh along the way, really.
And of course, you're doing good with Doc Wob and everything, and we're going to utilise your space here and all the memorabilia.
Yeah, my little man cave is actually being reformatted as a studio now.
Yeah,
it wasn't being used at the end of the day. I spent all this time and money and don't let anybody in here.
So it's good stuff. Not only are we obviously going out on YouTube, a visual effort by us guys, but we're going to be going out obviously as a podcast as well, and you'll be able to see us hear us on Spotify and Apple,
wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, like our guest who we're going to bring on in a minute, he likes to listen to his podcast at night. He's just told us so.
Very nice. I dread to think what kind of podcast they are.
Yeah, yeah. Bad stuff, but no, it's good stuff. And as we grow this thing, as Rob said, we're going to get more guests on, hopefully get more industry involved. Outside of the podcast, we're also looking to do more stuff on the channel as well. So we're going to grow this thing, Wobbs, aren't we?
That's your department more than mine, Jeffrey.
I know. I'm up for that because you're busy with...
Fairly busy with the titanium business. And the event is quite big now. And, you know, the normal business is always... feels like we're playing catch-up because we've always got something going on.
Yeah.
So if you can go out and do some bike tests, or you can... I think first up, we're going to test the VMXDN race bikes. That'd be fun. And then if you can get out there and... as long as it doesn't interrupt with your... Yamaha deal.
It won't. Shameless plug, by the way, because you are officially the first sponsor of the first ever Torq Moto show with Jeffro and Wobbs.
Exactly.
We've got to start somewhere. So by sponsoring it, you've gone out. Wobbs, by the way, has put his hand in his pocket and bought all the equipment. I've done nothing at this point.
No, it's quite expensive. It's quite expensive.
So we're up and running.
Yeah, here we are. First one. Let's get going.
First one. Let's get going. So talking of which, if you want to get hold of us at any point, I've got it here in front of us. We got a website address, an email address. It's info@torqmoto@gmail.com. Torq as in TORQ. Little play on words there.
Yeah.
And Moto, a little tip.
To what we used to do.
To the glory days back then when we were magazine editors.
So if anybody's got any questions, anybody's got any guests they want to see on, if there's anything you want us to do within reason, we will ask them questions.
And we'll be all over social media, won't we? Well,
we'll be all over it, yes.
Little snippets. I'll be out and about at races as much as I can. So will Wobbs. And I said, you know, we're in the industry like I think we are.
We know a few people. We know a few folks, yeah.
Talking to knowing people, let's bring on the first ever guest. And I'm pumped with this because it's relevant. He's relevant.
It's current.
He might not feel it. So first guest is Team GB MX of Nations team manager, Mark Chamberlain.
Hey.
Hello. How's it going?
It's all good, mate. It's all good.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on at such short notice because, let's be honest, we've, like we said, we're kind of thrown it together pretty quick, this first one. So thanks for coming up here and coming on, especially so soon after Ernee, which was epic. So let's get the ball rolling with that.
Yeah, Ernee was last weekend.
Yeah, pretty much so.
What happened, Mark? Talk to us.
About the event. Let's talk about the event before we get into
epic. I know they were throwing out the names. They had 100,000 there, but was that over 2 days?
Yeah, I think the way they count it is how many times they come through the gate. So essentially, it could be divided down. It could be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but it's still probably 50,000.
Always looks epic there. But I mean, everybody is crammed into one flat section at the bottom of the track.
Oh, it's an immense, it's an immense place, isn't it? The way that it's, it's small, fairly small for that big a crowd, but it works, and the atmosphere is amazing. And like talking to the riders, like they can really hear the crowd, like when anything happening, and
it's always a good race.
It's
always good.
It's good, isn't it? It's good.
Never been boring there, is it?
And the French fans love it, don't they? And the commentators, the way they get the fans engaged, That's what I like about it.
I used to think that Bercy Supercross. I remember being at Bercy, like the front rail, like their feet were like on level with the top of your head. And you stood on the start thing and they're saying something in French going off. And you hear all this screaming and shouting, all these air horns. And you look up and they're just sitting there like this. You're like,
trust me, Wobbs.
Who's doing all the screaming and shouting? It's all piped through the speakers.
This time they want sitting still. They're making a lot of noise. When they got them singing the French national anthem before, I think every moto pretty much. And listen, I'm British, and let's be honest, we've had a few dust-ups with the French down there.
Yeah, they haven't been our best friends sometimes.
But yeah, genuinely, like, I haven't got much hair on the back of my head, might bother you, but, it was kind of like, hairs on my arms. Yeah. It was proper electric when you was in the crowd.
No, you could feel it, couldn't you? And then when they got them all to be quiet before the start, to get that many people to be that quiet. And even like there was the odd chainsaw going, and they'd even like they get them stopped, and then it'd be quiet, and then it'd be 2 minutes, and then like woof, the crowd goes again. It's an immense event, isn't it? I've always loved it.
At night, they still have like car engines.
Oh
with no exhaust on them, just pouring fuel in the top of them.
It was like
proper feels scary, doesn't it? It proper feels like this is out of control.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Back to the Future 2, it was like being outside Biff's Pleasure Dome. It was mental up there. I didn't go up there. I've just seen videos from the likes of Jordan Booker, Bayliss, the Bayliss brothers and whatnot. But I heard the stories. Roger Warren, who was actually commentating on the event, he had hardly any sleep. And that was down in the pits, because you could hear it up there. I heard one story. There was a bloke stripped naked and zip-tied to the back of a van.
Nice.
Like, literally, like a crucifix. And they were driving him around and everybody was just chucking stuff at him.
We had that a little bit of Unadilla one year. We used to go out in the team mules driving around, and they were just throwing stuff at us, and it was scary. We had to get out of there. It was gnarly.
It was good though.
So to go off track a little bit, you mentioned Back to the Future then. If Back to the Future was filmed today, it would go back to 1993.
And there's me thinking that you're busy and got a load on.
That's like when I first went to the States.
Is that how your brain... You think random...
Oh, okay, I never knew that. Of stuff.
Random fact.
Yeah, it's like crabs. Do crabs think that fish fly?
This is a whole new podcast we're going into here, Wobbs. I've got to be honest.
You have to ask these questions.
I can't answer that. But the event, from your standpoint, actually trying to put aside being a team manager, can you feel that energy, or are you just so focused on the job in hand? Because you don't get to go out into the crowd. Once we get rolling on both days, that's the other thing. It's not the team management thing is a big gig. You're on it, like literally. You haven't got time much to think. So do you feel that energy as a team manager?
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, to be honest, quite a lot of the sessions, especially on Saturday, I went into the crowd to watch because Saudi was on the infield, so I went the opposite side just so the radio comms were relevant and we could see more of the track. But no, stood in the crowd. It's just, it's immense. Like the feel, you do, but then you're lost in the moment you're in, and you're only watching our guys mainly. So, to try and keep on top of that, but you can't help but to get wrapped up in the atmosphere at the same time because it's so loud. It's just, it's insane. But they've done a great job.
Down on the start, something else, isn't it?
Oh,
when you're down
amazing.
on that gate and there's like all the crowd to the left of you, the riders must feel it. I mean, it's tense. I was down there as a goggle guy and it was tense, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's what I mean. Do you feeling the energy, but do you get nervous, like as a team manager, no matter where you are in the world, wherever they do them? Like, France is a great example. A partisan crowd. So they're firing everybody up. Does that then fire you up to think from a British perspective, and even more patriotism comes out in you because it's that kind of event?
Yeah, you always get wrapped up in that at the Nations. I mean, you can't help but not to, can you? Really, like if you're there as a fan, if you're there as a rider, if you're there as a team personnel, whatever the case may be, we're all there because we love it. So to get, to be that close and to be in amongst it, like, you'd have to be pretty switched off from it all. And I get into it. I love it. I'm watching the riders, and obviously I want our guys to do the best, and I'm only watching them. But at the same time, like that atmosphere around you, like you can't help but to be sucked in. And that's what the event, why it's such a great event.
Yeah.
And, even afterwards, like British fans, you're talking to them and, they had an amazing weekend. Because the event is that good.
Yeah.
So, you've always got to keep that in mind, why we're there in the first place. And also it's a very special, it's the most special event in motocross. And we've all got to hold that dear.
100%. It's the best weekend of the year. I mean, you've done them at Matterley. Is there more pressure at Matterley, or is it more pressure or is it just the same?
It's the same, really. I mean, Matterley was my first one. So, pretty much in at the deep end, I suppose. But there was just a lot of support, so it never felt like pressure. There's just more like if there's more people there saying good luck and well done and whatever.
Well, he pulled off the podium, kid, first time out.
Yeah, he started good, didn't he?
Started good.
Yeah,
kind of gone downhill a little bit since then.
You've got everybody's expectations flying from the start, yeah. But like I said, the passion of it and being amongst it, do you actually try to channel that towards the riders, as a team manager? They've ridden a lot, obviously, and they're pros, but like we just said, the Motocross Nations is a very different animal. It's a different thing. From a team management standpoint, have you got like a generic speech like that you give to each rider, or do you, depending on the character?
No, it depends on the character. You just try to portray as much, or you get across to the riders and to the whole team, like how much it means to everyone. And, like you were there at the dinner on the Friday night, and it means a lot. It means a lot to me for those riders to understand how much it means to the fans, because we've all got accountability to the fans, because that's why we're there in the first place. They're license holders, or they're buying bikes, and they are our industry. So you can't not think of them and the way that they feel, because essentially that race, you're not an individual rider and that's it. You're a team and you're riding for your country, and we're all accountable to everyone, because that Team GB is everyone's. It's not anyone's. It's not. So
do you feel like some of the riders you need to pump them up, or you need to calm them down?
No, I don't know. Essentially, they're all pretty good. They're professionals, so it's not they at that level. They just need a bit of, I think, a little bit of reassurance that everyone's behind them. And we all want them to do well. That's the message I've always tried to portray. Because you can't just you can't change their mindset over one weekend, but you can reinforce. Look, this is where we're at. This is where we're at as a team, and this is what we expect. And everyone expects just go there and just give your best. And that's all you can hope for on the weekend. And it's such a lottery, that type of event. It's no different to at the minute watching the Rugby World Cup. England were written off before the start of it. They're now in a semi-final, because the Nations is the same as a knockout competition at World Cup level. It's all about that one event. So anything leading up to it means absolutely zero unless you can convert the final bit. You can be the number one team in the world. If you don't go all the way, you're not world champions. And exactly the same for the Nations. You can be world champion individually, or you can be Jet Lawrence and go undefeated. But you go there, and okay, you might have been happy with his second race result, but the team got second is a great result. But I'm sure they still want to win as a team.
Yeah.
So no matter how good an individual performance, you can be proud of yourself. But at the same time, if the team doesn't perform together, you're still not quite there. So you've got to try to, everyone's got to gel, and the French will go home the happiest, because as a team they won. No matter what those individuals done, as a team they've got something very special to go away with. And that's what I love about that event. It's not an individual event like motocross normally is.
Yeah, that's a mantra. I've heard you say that from the get-go, actually. So you've come into the job with that from the very start. I remember you saying that at Matterley. Going back to the very start, so how did it come about regards of you getting the actual gig? Was it an email? Was it a phone call from the ACU? And
when was that, 5 or 6 years ago?
Must have been almost like maybe the same level. I mean, representing your country, no matter what level, team manager or rider, it's a big deal. So, I guess almost like getting an OBE or MBE or something like that, How did it come about?
Well, was like everyone watching as a fan, you know, and I was just felt like a few things needed changing, and I sent an email in and just said, look, this is a proposal, and this is the way I feel. I love watching the event. I'd like to be part of it, and just basically went that way. And no doubt, you know, someone now might be doing the same thing to me, going, something needs to be changed now. So all I was doing was said, look, I've got a few ideas,
basically,
and this is what I'd like to do.
You almost sent in a CV without asking to send in a CV.
Yeah,
that's fair play.
I put myself forward. Just said, look, I would like to do something. If things, you know, there was a rumor that things might be changed, and I said, look, I just like to put my ideas forward and my name forward, and to give it a go. And I feel passionately about British motocross and the team, and I want to give it a shot. And they come in, and then we went and had an interview type thing with the ACU, with the committee, and went through the proposals, and then it was accepted that I was going to give it a shot. So yeah, I mean, I thank the ACU for that, because it's never easy, you know, like to make a change, or it's quite easy just to carry on, isn't it? You know, so, you know, I appreciate their support, and like I say, but someone might have different ideas, and that's why I never take it for granted. You know, like each year is a case of you do the best you can, and then we go back and we see, and then it's down to the committee ultimately to make that decision on whether I continue.
Yeah. Well, you started off good. Let's go back, actually, like we said, to Matterley, your first one. I mean, that to start at home in effectively your first day on the job.
Who was the team then? Max,
Tommy, and Dean.
Dean and Tommy.
Yeah.
Good team though.
Yeah, it was a good team. It was a good team. We've you know, each year that I've done it, we've had problems. You know, Tommy was riding with a broken ankle that we didn't know at the time. He was carrying an ankle injury that turned out to be a fracture. You know, so that was tricky, but you know, the boys all managed it really well. And just
I got to admit, I was wrong, because you picked Max, and I'm like, oh, but he stepped up, didn't he? He
well
did
done
step
for manning up, Wobbs, and admitting it.
I have been wrong on occasion.
Max is one of those guys, isn't he? You know, the performance
bless him.
was amazing,
Oh
and
my God,
leading
brilliant.
up to it, like within the team, what I enjoyed most about that was watching Dean and Tommy talk Max up all week. You know, they could see how fast he was going, and they were just reassuring him that he was going. If you ride like that at the weekend, you're going to win. And that was like Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know, and they all week, and then on the podium,
Which,
you know, when we got third on the podium, like Tommy and Dean were both going, "Oh, Max, you were just a man today. You were the man," and that was so nice to see, because that's what the event is about, and that's what I want Team GB to be about. You know, they weren't there. You know, Tommy wasn't sulking because he hadn't achieved what he wanted to achieve, and his class won that a few times at that event.
Yeah,
he was just buzzing for Max and buzzing for the team that were on the podium, and that's the mentality you need to succeed at the Nations.
I mean, I said leading into it, that must have been such a big buzz, that your first ever one, and being at Matterley. Going back to that one, were you nervous, like at the time, on a personal level, as if to say, right, okay, all eyes are on me. I know it's a team thing, but you know, a big change, like you said, a new team manager coming in at home Nations. You know, at any point as we were getting nearer to the event, did you have any doubts yourself personally about your ability to do the job?
I guess, like, you know, going a bit personally, I have a little bit of self-doubt on different things, like, but I push myself through that, like. But everyone's got a little bit of that, whether it be you call it nerves or whatever else. Like I
think if you
often have that.
We were nervous starting this, Wobbs, weren't we?
I was very
yeah, but you've just got to push through, haven't you? So it's that same thing. Like, and once you get going, like, there's certain things that I'm not ideal, like speaking and that whole thing of being in front of a camera is not necessarily my ideal scenario. Like, I've done this because you asked me.
I wish he said that before we got there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's only because you asked me and you've been so good to me. So I'm like, oh, I'll have to say yes. And then afterwards, this morning, I'm driving up thinking, why did I say yes?
I hate filming stuff.
But that's part and parcel of it, though. There's certain elements, you know, that I love, and there's certain elements of it that you push yourself through because but then everyone's like that. The riders, you know, we ask them to do certain things, and there's no doubt there's things that I ask the riders to do. Oh no, God, now we've got to do that. But they, you know, we've all got to do things we don't like in life, so it's just part of it. But no, back to your question, did I feel nervous? Not really. I think I just was buzzing the whole time. Like, I just felt like the whole thing was just such a buzz.
Was that the best one you've had as a Nations manager?
They've all been good for different reasons, I've got to say.
And the one in Assen was a pull out of the bag.
Assen was amazing because, like, we had, to see Nathan Watson, like a factory KTM, have a clutch issue was unheard of. And then, like, that feeling of almost like it's gone. And then for the French team to have a problem on the last lap and then Simo to be charging and come through and get enough to nick a podium, that was an amazing feeling, to be fair, And then Italy was another great one because we were so close that could have been a different result, So, and again, another different combination of riders. So, and it was very. I was really proud of the team each time that we had the podium. That it was a slightly different combination because a lot of people would say, "Oh, like to begin with, oh, you're a bit lucky," or then it was the riders or whatever. And then because of the different riders to get Sterry to have that feeling, for Nathan Watson to have that feeling, Ben Watson, Tommy, Max, Dean. You're talking about a lot of riders, a lot of different combinations, and that's something I'm really proud of. Not myself. I'm not proud of myself. I'm proud of the boys because that's like, you look at that and you go, no, that's really great that amount of riders have tasted a podium for Team GB.
Yeah,
I know a lot of them now were losing or starting to get to that age, but that's still a great thing, That's and Comrade in Italy. So we've got a vast range of people that have experienced it, and that I'm really proud of. That's good for those guys. They've got memories that they can retire with, and. No one can take that away from those guys. No chance.
No, representing your country is just monumental. You want to get a good result off the back of it, but obviously just to represent Team GB.
That brings us on to the age thing of, where do you see the future? Without sounding like I'm trying to throw anybody under the bus, I'm not seeing a load of big names coming through. You've got Billy Askew coming up. I'm not seeing many others. I mean, are you? I mean, am I missing something?
No, I think, to be fair, if you look at... like the Coupe de l'Avenir and some of the junior groups, to the last 2 years, the Coupe, they've had a win and a third.
Yeah.
So if you compare that to other countries, why is there a reason that those guys can't then come through? I know we've got a little bit of a gap now, but for me, it's the transition between getting them from that youth age where they're all holding their own at the minute in different areas. So it's not like we've been blown away in any of the classes at those races. So it's linking the Coupe to European to the nations. And I think where we've got the gap is going from the Coupe to EMX.
Yeah.
So, and then that's what I think needs looking at, is to bridge the gap between that, because there are some good youngsters there. But if they get to that point and then they just stay in the UK, then we're going to struggle then to get them to step up when it counts for the nation. So if it's me, or what I'm looking at is that point between the two, is how do we get those kids to EMXs on 125s? So they go on the 125s, then they go into EMX 250, and then they end up in MX2. So we've got, look, the Askew is Billy Askew is a perfect example. So he gets that opportunity. The only thing I would say with that is that I would have liked to have seen from a personal perspective is that he had done that on a 125, and it wasn't going where he's like gone there, he's done the UK, and then now he's gone from winning in the UK to now he's got to jump to EMX 250. And he's good, and I think he's good enough to make that jump.
Yeah, me too.
But if you miss steps, you make it harder, in my opinion. So it's making sure that we get as many people go through that process as possible.
So the Coupe, as now you've got Dave Willett running the show, or picking the team for that. Dave Garland prior to that. Is that obviously that's a good starting point, because that would be getting them used to team competition, European competition, although it's not an EMX. So are you in early state? Have you and Dave already at this point had a conversation? Is it likely that you two potentially go and pitch something to the ACU to maybe influence British motocross, the British Motocross Championship, to try and align it more with EMX competition? I mean, it's got to be a good thing if you could go and talk to the ACU about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's something that we haven't officially spoken about it, but I've had several conversations with Dave, and through my company Armour Vision, we've helped that juniors world, because I felt it's important to be involved. Separate from the Team GB thing, for me, it's really important to cultivate that youth for all of us.
Dave's doing a great job with them.
Just need to get that it needs to have those steps. That's all. We just need to try and come together to get those steps. So no, definitely. I mean, the dust settling on this year's race, and then it's a case of sitting down and going, right, okay, like where's the plan and how do we go forward? But like I say, that's also down to the ACU. We need to sit down and discuss the future and how do we plug those gaps. But it's not just the ACU's responsibility for that. It's the mindset of the riders' families, because not everyone is getting funding through their federations. You know, there is some federation programs, but to be realistic, they're not all getting that. So you've got to strike a balance. Like, it's not all on any one person, and that's why everyone needs to pull together.
Yeah.
To try and make a little bit more of a structure if possible. But you know, we got some good kids still, I think, in there.
Yeah.
But it's
and
just
as far as
getting
your
them.
team selection goes, you know, you've only got one Grand Prix rider in the UK right now. I mean, whichever way you dice it up, that ain't good.
No, that's tough. I mean, obviously, like Bobby Bruce done some in the 250s before he got injured, and you had Rizzy in there for a bit, and then he came in. But no,
but that's still
not permanent. No,
small
it's not.
numbers, isn't it? Compared with like what we were at in the 90s.
The 90s, I mean, there was the grading list, and on the 500 grading list, Thorpe and Nickel were already automatic. There was another 9, and there was 3 guys like your Wheelers and your Jarmans and your Stuart Coyles had to get Irish licenses.
Yeah.
So that was like 15 English guys at the Grand Prix in one class. Then there's 250s and 125 classes because everything was separate back in the day.
Yeah,
we
were speaking earlier, weren't we? It's hard to put your finger on it. Is it financial because the GPs have become harder to get to and more expensive? There's
more of them as well, by the way.
There's more races. There's more series in the UK, so there's more racing to do here.
Yeah.
Where before you had the British Championship, they go and do some French internationals, they do some GPs.
Well, exactly. No French internationals anymore. They stopped overnight.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just us suffering. So there is a thing that everyone has to adapt to at the minute. So we're all not in an ideal place. UK is not the only one that's struggling.
I was just going to say that as Team GB MXON Nation's manager, do you think in the UK we put too much emphasis on it, regards of what you read on social media? You know, we're not doing enough to develop young talent, and you know, and the UK's behind and all that. But are we really? You know, are we just so like focused on the UK? Is the problem that we have is also happening in some other countries as well? Not all of them, but
back in the day we used to have, say, 15 500 Grand Prix riders, but there'd be 60 guys trying to qualify. Yeah. Now you've got 20 guys on the line, whatever they end up with. So every country's got less guys going. So it's not just a problem we've got.
No.
It's like a problem for every federation or every country. They haven't got as many riders on that level.
Yeah.
And whether it's a paid thing, because, you know, we both know as a team, you've had teams, you're desperate for the next talent.
Yeah.
You're not just looking for money, because the money will come if you get the right rider. And, you know, you guys like, again, Billy Askew, you know, you need to get him on and then get the sponsors in.
I think you're right. I agree with the EMX side of it, because obviously let's effectively say that internationals were back in the day like your
bankroll and everything.
Well, no, but they were your learning. They were almost your apprenticeship to go and do GPs.
Yeah.
There wasn't really EMXs back in the
No,
day. You
had to
literally
jump
came
straight
from
in
a
and go and
domestic
try and
championship
qualify.
straight to GPs. So, you know, and the high end of GP, certainly MXGP, is obviously harder
But then
to get into.
don't you think also like
So,
society changed a little bit as well?
Absolutely,
Because,
everything's changed,
I remember
isn't it?
like when you were going and you were van sharing, and then you
Yeah,
talked about
you were
Wheeler,
there.
and there was there was several of them all going in the same to
all
cut
travel
costs,
together,
which then like that's not happening. So you have got a little bit. You can blame the system to a degree, but then you've also got to look at yourself and go, okay, as a society, we have changed a little bit. It's not quite the same as let's all jump in a van together. You know, like. Do you all need to go in your individual motorhomes? No, you don't need to.
No.
But a lot of people do. And then you
used to make it pay by going and qualifying, getting your 1,000 Swiss francs.
there is that. No.
And then you'd do a French international like on a Tuesday or something, and then get paid for that. And then you'd be out for like 4 or 5 weeks.
I think what we were talking about before we came on air, there's so many contributing factors to
Yeah.
it. Like I said, there's more domestic championships. There's more like social media. You can be like a big fish in a small pond now.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, that you can go and win a championship in the UK to try and get sponsorship for your kid or whatever. Think, yeah, you're the man because you're winning that. You know, and it's aspirations, how far you want to go, isn't it, really? If you really want to go and do it and have that short window of opportunity and say, right, I'm going to give it my best shot, which from my standpoint as a rider back in the day, that's what we collectively decided to do as a family.
Yeah.
It was like, right, we're going to roll a dice. We're going to see how far we can go with this because it's a short window. I got good enough to get on the grading list, and it's like, are we going to go and do GPs? Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah,
because,
but you could pick and choose. You
because
I
looked
do
at
a French one, and then you go and do the
exactly.
locally ones.
But also that moment, Wobbs, it was more of a case of like, right, I'm going to regret if I don't go and do that. I might come up ridiculously short, but let's see, even if we did it for 1 year, to see where it leads to.
Yeah.
And I just think it would be cool to see more British riders come out of their comfort zone, you know, which you could argue is not good for the sport in the UK if they're travelling to EMX and putting their investment into that. But we, like Mark said, we've got to somehow bridge the gap.
I don't know whether that EMX is...
I'll tell you right now.
You got to enter the whole season, or can you show up and do a
can do
wild
one
card?
at a
Yeah,
time.
you can do individuals.
But you know, I've been calling races for a long time. Obviously, at the the MX Nationals and Arena Cross and all those things, and we've got some really good, talented young riders. We do, but they're not on the platform that they should be with some other European countries, and that's the bit that I agree with. Somehow we've got to get more of them doing EMX, whether they make the grade or not, but at least go and try to get your speed up. And and if you don't make it, you're traveling around Europe as a family, and making memories. Because let's be honest, we could sit here and talk about memories from GPs, all of us, for 5 hours and not even talk about bikes.
Good times.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
But again, like I say, the world's a different place. Maybe you can't do what we did.
But then maybe
Definitely
we need to reset our expectations then of other people as well. You know, you've got to. It's difficult, isn't it? We all want the best, but we can't go back in time. Times have changed. How can we change with it to try and get the maximum out of those British kids? For me got to be the question you've got to ask yourself. We're not going to be able to change the system. They're changing slightly though. They've brought the price down of certain entries, so they're realising that they need to give a little bit to get some more numbers back in. So you know, it's always never going to be perfect for anyone, but we've got to roll our sleeves up, and the Brits have got to have a go.
Things have changed. I mean, look at Malin, for example. You know, he's Grand Prix at 16. I mean, when did he win in France on that 500? He wasn't very old.
Well, I think he was 17. Wasn't
17.
He?
I mean, he's riding 500 Grand Prix and winning them.
Yeah.
You know, and but the world's a different place now. You know, maybe you can't do that.
But then, to be fair, I think Mailer and Dobby at that time were exceptional. Like they were, don't realise how good they were at that time. Like we sort of almost, it's not just a case of those two were like bang. They could have been, you know, they both could have been multi-time world champions.
Big time, I agree with that. What I'm saying, I think we're too critical, saying, "Oh, when's the next big thing?" and all that. You've got to bear in mind when you get to the high end of sport, it's not necessarily a nationality thing. I think you're either like, you know, or coaching to a degree. You either have that world-class killer instinct as an athlete, you know, or you don't. It doesn't really matter where you're born. I mean, let's look at, Tommy, right? Okay, so obviously Dobby was our last world champion. Following him was really, Tommy was, you could say, like world-class. Obviously,
Tommy's been our best guy for 10 years.
You know, and I remember watching him for the first time at Matchams, and he wasn't, you know, racing youth motocross as such at that time. He wasn't a big name, but you could just tell there was that kind of star quality about him, and certainly like the grit and determination to go there. So I don't think that's always about coaching. You want to nurture it, but let's be honest, like world-class athletes, they don't come along every day.
I mean, looking back, it's dead easy to, you know, hindsight and all, but Tommy should never have gone to the States when he went. You know, the year Muscan won the world championship, he was on a random French Honda team that was struggling, and KTM needed somebody, so they poached him as best. Whatever word, they got him on halfway through the year and he won the world championship for him. Had Tommy stayed, Tommy would have been that guy because the people in front of him had all left. Carioli had gone up, Rattray had moved.
Yeah,
Tommy was, you know, second in the world. And he would have been world champion multiple times, I believe. And then he could have gone to the States, but he decided to go to the States for what reason? Got hurt doing Supercross like they all do.
That's another thing. Like I said, we could and would and should talk for hours about how we like nurture British talent, but like I said, from my standpoint, it's out there. We have got some, you know, some really talented riders. Are they absolutely world class from the get go? Maybe not, but there's some riders out there with like the right opportunities and whatever, and putting them on that platform to compete. That's the trouble. We're not sending enough riders for whatever reason to go and even see where they sit in the grand scheme of things in EMX competition. We haven't even got that many.
No, that's why
British
you've got to
riders
give Askew his
doing
credit. You know, he's having a go.
Yeah, that's
doing
nice
the
to
right
see.
thing. Yeah, he's
You know,
having a go and-
British team, British rider, and they're going to go for it. And you just got to wish them the best, because that's what we need. And then hopefully might trigger is other people doing it, because that's essentially what happens as well. Like if you get people pulling back from it, they're all in a fairly small paddock talking like negatively. Let's say people are like, oh, that's no waste of time, we're going to stay in the UK. All of a sudden you get that mindset. Billy breaks that mindset and goes, and then they come back and talk in a positive light.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you've got other guys there going, do you know what, I actually want to give it a go. And then the British GP rolls round. Hopefully there's one with the nations. It's not on the calendar, but hopefully there is one. That the EMX guys take that as the home opportunity, because they're like, Billy Askew, Billy's doing well. You know, and then the cycle starts again. And I do believe it goes in those cycles.
I agree, yeah. I've seen enough. There's been more 65 and 85 riders doing some EMX this year. One kid that is breaking the mould, regards of the current mould anyway, little kid called Harry Dale. You probably haven't heard of him, and maybe you haven't even, Mark. He's from the UK, but he doesn't even race in the UK.
No, he's Holland based.
He races Dutch. In Holland, Belgium. He's been absolutely ripping it. Basically winning pretty much everything. He was unfortunate not to win the actual, the junior worlds and whatnot. But he's winning races on the 65. He's now moving up. A real, proper, genuine, I believe, without dumping a load of pressure on him early doors. But the kid's out there already winning in Europe. Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to see more people commit to that. And do you know what? If that means that we have to sacrifice seeing some of our British talent racing on UK shores, I'd have that. I'd accept that. I'd be like, well, I'd rather we have some riders that are at the sharp end of GPs than seeing them grace, domestic motocross, particularly where it is in the UK with so many championships on week in, week out. You're like, let's get them all together.
There is a lot on.
Yeah.
There is a lot on, and I think that dilutes the importance of each championship, because back in the day you were British champion. That's big news.
Yeah.
That was a big deal,
It was. Yeah, definitely big deal.
I'm not saying it's not now, but it doesn't seem as big as it was. With your Paul Luntz and your Roger Harvis, back in the day, to be British champion was a big deal.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it seems to be diluted a bit now.
So going back to the actual event as such then, going way back again to Matterley first time around, that you started off, I said, incredibly well. What an amazing thing. Your first ever gig, putting us, on the box with the team, but you played an integral part of that by choosing those riders for one. All that experience then going into the ones that followed, what did you take from that first one? And over the years, it's like a 2-pin question here. Over the years, what have you added to it? What have you learned about yourself regards of, have you had to stop doing one thing? Have you assessed after each one and gone, I could have done that better, I'm going to tweak that next year and I'm going to behave more like this, or,
I think it's you always look at yourself to say, could we have done better as a team? I think like looking after everyone really, like although like this year the results weren't where we wanted it to be, like the cohesion between everyone, the race teams, the two teams, the Crennan Honda team and the Beta factory team, was probably the best it's been. Like the communication, like getting the mechanics into a WhatsApp group. When we done the track walk, getting the mechanics involved in that as well. Like I was happier in a lot of ways with some of the stuff. Like that's been from thinking about things of the past. Like felt like weekends were rushed, and then everyone's been different. Like the US ones were really, really difficult, like financially. So I was, we're running the tour. We got Team GB fans there, organising a meal, passes for everyone, everything else, and like took so much of my time that. This year we nailed a few points that I didn't get last year because I was so absorbed in covering it to make sure that we had enough budget to do it all correctly. And that's again what the ACU do is really good. What they do is they give me a budget, and people will criticise and say, "Oh, the budget's not high enough." But you hear Roger DaCosta say his budget's not high enough.
Yeah.
What the ACU do for me, which is great, is they give me a budget and they then let me run with it. They don't say, okay, there's the budget, but you have to do this, you have to do that. They completely leave me and trust that we're going to get the job done the best we can. So then I can interact with other sponsors and things like that and bring it all together. So that freedom allows us to get the job done.
Yeah.
What's counterproductive in my mind that I've seen in the past is that say you can't afford to get a rider over. Dean Wilson was one in the past, to then not get that rider and then quit. You know, that's something I'm not willing to do. Like the ACU can say to me, they don't want my services anymore. But what I will not do is, because America was tough budget-wise, I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram and quit, because I think that we can do this and it can be self-funding, which is becoming that way because of the effort gone into building that. So, it's quite easy to sort of sit back and go, well, the budget could be better and whatever else. But when Roger DaCosta's saying the same thing, and then the figures they're bandying about are crazy money, and this year they had the big double slide out trailer and everything for the team to be in between motos, and I'm looking at that going, well, they don't know what a tight budget is. Do you know what I mean?
But what I like to get across is, like, until you've been involved, you don't realise that, for getting a factory KTM rider from America into a factory KTM team in Europe is fairly easy. It's one phone call.
Yeah.
But you get like Dean Wilson, who's on a Honda team over there, getting them the infrastructure to race it is next to impossible. It's really hard. And it's like, that's why you have to think that Roger DaCosta has got 3 guys who are on Huskies and KTMs, because they've got the infrastructure here ready for them to step into. That's why they rode them bikes, not because they were...
Before you get into answering that question from Wobbs, I know you almost do a self-ban on social media. Yeah, I know you leading into the event. You literally pick a point leading into the event and go, I'm not looking at social media. And I know you don't read too much into it anyway, because I've known you long enough to know how passionate you are and mentally strong enough not to get absorbed with that. But it must be leading into point before you make your self-imposed ban. Some of the things, obviously, that's the worst thing about social media. Obviously, people just dive in, don't they? And they don't. It must be frustrating when people, are saying, do this, do that. And, they don't even know half the story. And you're never really in a position to tell the full story. Like we're just saying, like, just logistics alone, let alone, like, getting riders there, just logistics with teams and everything. Because... we have it with EMX. Oh, get James Stewart. It ain't that easy, kid. You know what I mean? It's not.
I think it's easy to sit back. It's easy to sit back and to criticise. I do switch off to it, and I literally go, right, okay, that's it. I'm not gonna look at. Not that I've look at it. It's like, oh, it's hurt my feelings. It's just that I don't want my mind to stray. So I'm just like, well, just bin it, put it down, and just forget about it, because there's so much positive things anyway coming. You don't need to worry about it, because the majority of the people that comment it's normally a positive thing and get behind the team. That's always our thing: get behind the boys. # get behind the boys. Just want to try and encourage everyone to be positive, because no matter what cards we're dealt, negativity is not going to help. So for me, you just got to crack on and be positive. And back to what you said about the teams and things. Like not many people know that. A few years ago we had problems with. Riders not being able to ride, and then even last year,
elaborate on that, because we were talking about that before you came on. Like you're just saying the issues in last minute decisions and getting riders, and there's always inner politics that people don't know about, way more than people actually. Well,
it is the end of the year, and quite often there's riders who have at the end of their contracts. Teams don't really want to do anything for them, so it can go. It's the end of the year. Not everybody's best friends.
What's going on?
Don't know what's going on.
I don't know. Anyway, so it was just flashing. I couldn't see it. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, regards of the logistics and getting riders over, that's always a big problem. When is the team? I know there's always a cut-off point regards to the entry. You've got to get a team in.
Yeah, 1 month. Before.
Yeah, 1 month, whatever. But when is it? Do you? I guess you always want to. Do you try to leave it as late as you can for any like injuries or stuff like that? When do you sort of notify the riders that this is it, guys, you're on? It
just depends, to be honest. Like you've got,
can't read that.
Like the last few years we've had either injuries. We were trying to negotiate riders to get to the race release from the team, and if you're in that situation where you're up against it, like I'm not going to release a team early and then change it. So then I leave it to the last minute, and then I've been criticised, a little bit for that, and saying why am I leaving it so late?
You get criticised whatever you do.
So we've got to make sure that we provide the best team within reason that we can, and if that means leaving it late, it means leaving it late. But what I don't want to do is put a team out publicly, and then go, oh, okay, well, we fix that problem now, we'll change it, whatever, because that's not respectful to the riders. So I try and keep the communication with the riders the best I can. It's something that from this year that I've learned that I need to be better at, because I didn't communicate with Adam Sterry in the right way. So being self-critical, that wasn't the best thing, but it's always difficult because you're juggling your time, and I work as well. It's like it's an unpaid job I'm doing just because I love it. So, but that's not an excuse. I always want to do the best that I can. So every year I learn a little bit, and people don't understand. But at the same time, everyone's got a right to their opinion, and back to what I said about the fans own the team and whatever else, and that is the case. And I had my opinions when I was watching. Yeah, I didn't voice them on social media, but I had my opinion always. But so I can't
criticise.
them in
as a CV and got the
gig.
gig.
Exactly. Bad mouth the old manager, and he was.
No, I didn't do that.
I think it's like we got the Nations this year at Matterley, which is a right result. Steve's pulled it out of the bag. So all we can do is get behind it all and just get,
Yeah, that could be massive for the. It could be again. It's another opportunity for the next group of young riders to watch that, to get involved and look at that and be like, I want to be on that team, and maybe that'll inspire them. Hopefully that'll inspire them to be really to push on with their individual careers, because that event, they might not have ever seen it. There might be some young kids that were really talented that haven't been to a Motocross of Nations yet.
Yeah.
And they'll come to Matterley and watch and like, wow.
No, it's awesome.
That's what it's all about. I mean, 1988, I went to watch, and that was my, ever since I went to watch that race, that's why I love this.
Machine was on a 500.
Love this race, yeah. That's why I love that race so much. I bought a T-shirt, Wobbs, at the last one. This one, there's a vintage 88 one up at the Prem stand.
Never.
I paid 120 euros for it this year, even though I did have two back in the day. I had one of each colour when I was a kid that Dad bought, and I've had to go and spend 120 euros. But I was like, for me, that was my first one. That was my that's the one that stuck in my mind. How great an event it is, and then you get passionate about it, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I'm touching on that. I'm sorry to hear about your dad. He was a legend.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I don't use them words lightly.
No, he was tough
Ezra
times.
Was a boy.
He was good man.
We can get some Ezra stories in later, because we're gonna talk. We're definitely gonna go back to the very beginning and Motovision and all that in a little while. I'm not sure. Anyway, now's probably a good time to just say. By the way, you're sponsoring this podcast, Wobbs. Get a plug in right away.
Oh yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Go on. Do your pitch. Just say about how good Wob Titanium is.
Yeah, it's great.
But anybody else, by the way, that is listening, as we grow this thing, get in touch. We're going to definitely want more people on board. We are going to just not only be doing the podcast, we're going to try and add some more content to the channel other than the podcast. That's
do some factory
out
bike,
and about.
Do some factory bike tests, get some riders on, but riders are not the most interesting, are they? Bless them. They're also corporate. They're also politically correct. We want some interesting industry people. We got a really good lineup of people coming on who are going to shake it up. We're going to talk some fun. We're going to have a good time.
You need swore then. You can. You're right.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying to be a good boy. You want. I just come back from Qatar, so I'm kind of talking myself out of swearing. I don't want to get locked up.
So there's plenty more coming from us at Torq Moto. There's going to be loads of stuff. Certainly, I'm excited about doing the Evo bike test.
Evo bike test. We'll start off with those because they're still here.
Yeah,
strangely, and we'll do those. Then we're getting into factory bike tests. It's the end of the season. End of the day, there's not much content from the races, so we're going to have to come up with content, which is talking to industry types, mechanics, team members. We've got the whole Triumph thing to cut across. We've got the whole electric bike thing to talk about. There's loads of stuff.
Good guest like this, see. So I told you he'd be a great first guest.
Yeah. Well,
we're not even rolling properly yet.
There's loads of subjects we've got to talk about.
We have. Going back to subjects, let's get to Matterley next year then. Let's sort of fast forward. Like you said, first time, that was your first year in the gig, so you were so focused on the actual team and whatever. Things have evolved since then, like you said, like fundraising for, to make it happen with the budgets and stuff that you got. So that's got to be a big thing. Not home advantage as such of the crowd, but like we already need to start building up now, like get everybody in UK motocross out to get behind the guys. So are you already starting to think of any sort of ways that we can incorporate the British crowd into and get them engrossed into the team a bit more? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, like I say before, first job is to get the green light from the ACU. And if they're happy for me to continue, then, we've spoken about some ideas, and been running that Team GB tour, and we've had the dinner on the Friday night. We want to expand on that if we go forward, and just really trying to have a hub of Team GB, like with merchandise and really make try and make a visual impact, and try and get
like
people really
proms,
bought into it.
Yeah, basically, like you said, if you can get trackside, like a big marquee trackside with viewing.
Yeah, just to get also from there, so we can try and get the merchandise out there, so that the fans are really engaged, and get the riders over there, not to engage to a select few, to engage with the fans. That's really important. It's like, yes, that's great. The team dinner is great because it helps with some funding and the sponsors and the interaction, but then also as well to make sure that we got everyone there to have some sort of contact and a chance to interact, and the riders can feel as though the whole spectator, the GB spectators are fully behind them.
Yeah, that would obviously give them a lift. I mean, the French of the last number of years obviously have been firm favourites, or one of the firm favourites, and again they with the home advantage. You could almost listen. Febvre's an amazing rider. We know that anyway, but watching his performance on the Saturday at Ernee, and then how he was getting the crowd behind him.
They've made some funky team choices last few years. There's like ignoring Ferrandis sometimes, and there's guys who they just leave out. You're like, there's obviously a lot of politics at play somewhere there. I don't know what's going on. But there's people who have pissed somebody off at some point.
He'll know more than anyone.
I think if you noticed, like that Paulin was back in with the team this year, and they all say that he was the anchor, and he was the man that made it like the team event.
Nice.
And I think that basically when he stopped, it splintered a little bit from what I can gather. And then they didn't want that. Certain people got left out. And like this year, it was like, right, try and bring that team thing back together. And he was like instrumental in that, all staying together all week and things. So, I mean, I think he's obviously a passionate guy, and you could see it. Like he was
the event means a lot to him. The amount of times he's done what he's done and won it. So, but going back to what I was saying about Febvre, like obviously they were working the crowd on Saturday. Febvre in particular, even in the quality, like when he set in qualifying, when he went quickest, he'd cruise round and stop and get them all on board and all that. So that brought a lot to it. But, I watched him in that first race, and, he made a mistake with 3 to go, spun out, lost the lead. And they were sitting pretty at that point already. He was second. I think Vial was back in 5th or 6th. They could have quite comfortably maybe even on the pit board, just hold it there. A 2.6 is a brilliant start. He was having none of it. I don't know if he was told to push on, but he's like, no, from an individual standpoint, he's like, I'm winning this moto. I'm absolutely having this back. And he just went straight back at Prado.
Did he?
And, it just elevated the whole, and right from there, literally, I mean, they were wild all weekend, but once that first moto went, that was it. It was like they were off and running, weren't they? Had the crowd completely on side. So that's what I'm saying.
They're on the front foot, aren't they, as well?
Exactly, yeah.
Not gate pick 36, was it?
It does out.
On the complete opposites, wasn't it?
Yeah, the gate pick makes a massive difference. But is the start there really sided?
It's just more risk. There's more risk. The further out you are, there's more risk. And we got tagged, in all 3 motos in some way. You're up against it when that happens.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the actual, we spoke about the event and what it's like to be there and that kind of stuff. So let's talk about the actual team, and the result. It was, again, you outlined quite clearly to everybody when we did the dinner on Friday and whatever, and I know you're going to stand by that, that was you felt the strongest team at the time, and we went there, and like I said, we've had a couple of podiums before, didn't go to plan the year before that. So how do you assess this year's performance as a team performance, and and review it in that way?
I mean, it's definitely not where we want to be, that's for sure. And it's, I'm not going to lie and say any other than that. But I think being realistic, looking at it, if everyone stays on 2 wheels and you don't have any luck, then we would have been pushed to get higher than a 6th, or with a bit of luck you might get a better result. But I just feel as though it didn't really reflect where we're at. Other teams had bad luck, so you can't say that it's just we had some bad luck. We got tagged on the start a few times, but overall it was some things were okay, some things were good.
Was there. I mean, Conrad had a good qualifier,
really good, yeah. And that's
wrong with the
I guess
speed.
you can't look back but you go, if buts and maybes, but like the whole thing of the momentum, when you lose that momentum and you then got a bad gate pick and then you have a problem in the qualifying race, you're constantly trying to fight back. And when you haven't got the strongest team, and we haven't got any world champions in our team, we haven't got any national champions, not nationals in US national champions.
Yeah.
When you haven't got that sort of firepower, you need everything to go your way. You need a good start, and it just didn't quite happen. So it's frustrating as it is, but all the guys know where they're at. I mean, Josh put his hand up to go on the 250. I said, will you ride the 250? I'll ride anything, Mark, to be on that team. So what can you say to that? Brilliant,
Absolutely.
And they all put their hand up, and they all put the effort in. Conrad struggled. Like I say, the loss of the momentum, like going from third in the practice on such a high, and then having that problem in the heat race.
That problem in the heat race. So did you think that affected him?
What happened in the heat race?
That affected his psychology with it all.
Something hit the hydraulic clutch cable. So at the bottom, it connects to the casing. So he lost his clutch on the first lap.
Early doors. Yeah, about halfway around the first lap.
So then he stalled it. He stalled
it
in that race exactly. And you've got to think of rider safety as well. So that wasn't what it wasn't. It was a freak accident. It's no one's fault. But that obviously didn't help then the flow into the weekend with everything else. And you go back to the gate pick, different bits, but none of it's an excuse. At the end of the day, we should have performed better. Should have had a slightly higher score. But it is what it is, Like at the end of the day, we've also got to look at next year. You've got to look at Josh has never done it before, so he's been and blooded himself and done well. Ben stepped up as team leader as such, and because they're all quiet guys as well. I sort of forced it on Ben that he's like the team captain as such, and bless him, he came straight after his heat race. He came and spoke to Josh before he went out, and he picked that up and had a go at it, So that's good again because it's someone who's not necessarily that type of person to actually say, "Yeah, no, okay, I'll take that role on." You got to have a lot of respect for that, and I feel for Conrad that I don't want it to. It shouldn't be about him at the end of the day because it's about a team. You win as a team, you lose as a team. Yeah. We've got to look at the overall performance. We've got to look at that.
Do you think Conrad is being made to be a bit of a scapegoat, almost like the kind of Beckham scenario when he got sent off or whatever? They're expecting more from him.
Conrad's British champion.
Yeah.
And there's an expectation that comes with that. And obviously the speed's there because he was third in practice.
Yeah.
So there's no question about the speed with Conrad.
No, we all know.
You might not even look
at
social media or anything yet, but normally, the British public seem to get onto him quite a lot, and saying like, how can this rider be so good and yet, when he gets on a world stage, he can't seem to replicate that speed in the UK. So I'm just like your thoughts on that.
Well, no one can understand that apart from Conrad, and Conrad was beating himself up enough. I could see the look in his eyes. Like he was genuinely, absolutely gutted for himself and for the team. So, again, for this team and Team GB to go forward, it's definitely about sticking together and say to Conrad, look, at the end of the day, he's got a lot to offer Team GB. Absolutely. In my mind. So we've got to look at that, and he's got to look at that and try and move forward. And there's no good dwelling on things. And that's something that he needs to address, and he knows that, and bless him. It's just I don't like to see that because it's not a nice thing if people are calling him out. I haven't really looked, to be fair, but that's not correct. At the end of the day, he needs to refocus on his own things and move forward. And I still believe in the future he's got something to offer Team GB because he's such a class act.
How can listen? The talent's clearly there. You don't qualify third in time qualification. Across the nation.
And credit to Thorpe for stepping up and taking the whole team over there.
I know Dave and Ryan. They done real. They supported us so much with it all, and Rob and Willie as a team, and the beta guys as well. I mean, they were great. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm looking at it. I can see some positives. Like the beta thing. They've got that's a fairly new bike. They've got another winter to work on it, and listening to what they're saying, a lot of positives. So hopefully they can do a good job for Ben, and Ben can have a good season. I can't sit there and just look at all the negatives. Otherwise, there's no point in doing the job, is there? Yeah. I'm picking apart and going, okay, yes, I'm looking at the negatives, going, we need to work on that. We need to look at that. That needs talking about. But at the same time, like, let's look at some of those from my end, from the backside. I'm looking, going, that was good, okay, that's positive. Let's try and build on that going forwards. And then hopefully we've got a good selection of riders to pick from next year.
I was just going to say, currently as we sit here, you know, it's a small pool of riders and it's got some more down years, and it has. We've addressed that, you know, about the talent coming through.
So why no Dean Wilson?
Dino retired from motocross, so the Nations last year was officially his last motocross race, and he said that, and that's fair enough. You know, he's done a good job. His knees are shot, and he's just like, he's like, me, I can't do it.
No. Has he got the strangest accent?
I know, bless him. He's such a good guy. He's such a good team player.
Such
like when he was
brilliant last time there.
Really good.
Yeah, as well. Actually,
really good.
Like regards to team bonding and. Not just with the riders, getting the fans involved.
Yeah, fans and riders alike, and that's where like Dean was. Like I say, go back to the Max when Max had that good performance. It's like Dino was quite key to that. He's like, Max is sort of like wanting to be on his own. I'm trying to get them all together in the same house. Max is a bit reserved, and Dino in the morning for breakfast, he's got everyone up, put their hands in the middle and give it the old go team and what, like he's just a good dude, he's got a good vibe about him, which then brings on that atmosphere. And that's something to think about as well, it's like getting the right mix of characters and trying to make sure they don't go into their own little zone. And that's going forward, like, that's something this year I've learned. It's like, okay, we need to be a little bit more forceful going forward with the way that the structure is, because if you've got people that do sort of go into a hole, let's just say personally, it's a responsibility of the team manager and the teammates to try and get them out of that hole. So that's something that I've learned from this year that won't be happening.
Like it's an individual sport. You may be on a team with other riders as far as manufacturers or Beta or Kawasaki, whatever. It's an individual thing. I mean, you all want to go out and do the best you can. But then to try and turn that around to have a team mentality for one weekend of the year.
Exactly. But
have you ever had to pull any of them up on that down that year? Like take one of them to the side and sort of say that, come on, you're not being a team player?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, 100%.
No names. You don't have to mention names. I just wonder if you had to do that.
Yeah, no, a little bit. Yeah, definitely, because they're not used to it. Yeah. They're not used to it. And that's normal. But then again, it's just getting the right message across and building that team spirit. And I think it's really important. I'm not saying like the French have got the riders there, the world champions in their team. You can't say that it's all just about that, but that helps, because if you've got one rider who feels a little bit, not quite feeling it today, and then you've got the other two that are, that's the whole point of getting them together, and then so that they all understand, okay, I don't want to let my mate down. And that's, from a rugby perspective, you can't let your teammates down, but motocross, you don't have that. So going forwards, again, like you say, we were talking to Dave Willett, with those young kids, if we can ingrain in them early doors that it's about that team thing, then the later years will benefit from that. Yeah.
Before we sign off and we start potentially second part, if we get into that, talking about your own riding career and Motovision, which we might have to do in two sections. Let's just sign off on talking about this year's Nations. I'm just going to make a shout out on a personal level. Josh Gilbert, I thought, for his first time being on the team, having raced so many years with his dad, Andy, and, and knowing what Andy's like, aggressive racer and all that kind of stuff. We had some great battles, but Josh just seemed to be so relaxed by it all. I was expecting to be, for his first one, way more like nervous, tense, particularly, as I said, not riding a bike that he's been riding all year. And I got to say, throughout the weekend, he impressed me so much with not only how he handled the event, but his performance. So I thought he was absolutely brilliant.
Well, his girlfriend, Rebecca, said if he's any more laid back, he'd be sleeping. So I think he's definitely got the Cornish chilled vibe going on. So bless him. No, he done really well. Really proud of him. And like you say, the way he handled it. And, it was nice to see, and nice to see a Cornishman as well in there, back to my roots a little bit. Well, it's nice to see him in there, and I'm sure that everyone was really proud of him.
Yeah. I said the whole team, you could tell they did good. Okay, not the result you're looking for, but that nobody, you can't look and say nobody, again, looked like they didn't put a shift in. Like I said, there's people, saying expecting more from some of them, but as I said, it's a lot of pressure. And it just didn't happen this time around, did it? But we've got next year to look forward to, haven't we? And that's the point. Like, you go again, you don't dwell on it.
Home race, kid. You got to make it count this year.
Yeah,
no pressure.
No pressure.
We'll be there in force. So look, look, let's hold it there, and we're going to come back, and hopefully, if we got time, we're going to talk about Motovision, the good old glory days of Motovision,
Back in the day.
how you started, and I absolutely do want to talk about his opening lap at a mechanics race at a British Championship, because it was one of the most wild laps I've ever seen. He can't even remember it. So we'll park it up there, and we'll be back shortly, hopefully talking some more about Mark's own personal career and Motovision, which is a great conversation.
That'd be good. Next time.